Well, ladies and gentlemen, China had a massive military parade over the last few days with Kim Jong un, Xi Jinping, along with Vladimir Putin, all attending in honor of their resiliency, the Chinese that is, during World War II against the Japanese Empire. And Donald Trump saw it. He reacted to the parade. We can see it right here. It is very impressive, especially by U.S. standards. It's funny, if Trump were to ever have a parade like this, it would be seen as fascist. And this is originally what people thought Trump was thinking in terms of that parade that he wanted. He called it a military parade back around July 4th to celebrate the United States. And it was on his birthday. And instead, it ends up being the celebration. But liberals were going crazy. They were saying it's fascist, it's disgusting. And it ends up being this half-hearted military celebration, and then they made fun of it. So it's like you can never win, but it's very impressive. You can see definitely a different type of feel when it comes to the East versus the West in terms of really a core belief in a nation state. And so you've got Putin there. You've got, again, Xi Jinping. They were caught on hot mics talking about possibly trying to live to 150 years old through organ transplants. Whether or not you think that's real, it's kind of interesting that we were able to hear that. You have Donald Trump revealing he stayed up last night. This was a few days ago, watching the victory parade. Trump saying it was a beautiful ceremony. I mean, it was extremely impressive, especially when you compare it to what we had back in it wouldn't have been July 4th. I think it was June when they had that parade military celebration, like mid-June. But let's see what Trump says here.
It was a beautiful ceremony. I thought it was very, very impressive. But I understood the reason they were doing it, and they were hoping I was watching, and I was watching.
So yeah, a lot of people are wondering when it comes to the situation East versus West, a World War III potential scenario. Is the United States, is Donald Trump driving India closer to the East? Or is this just a temporary thing that has more to do with the Russian war in Ukraine? And should the United States be nicer to Russia and possibly try to mend the fences with Russia and maybe create an alliance with Russia to get them away from China? Because Russia's relationship with China is really just indicative of how strong NATO is. And it becomes a West versus East because of NATO and the amount of countries in NATO that would be part of the perceived Western side of the world. So you've got to counter that in a way. And so there is a convenience aspect to an alliance and some type of military agreement between Russia and China, and possibly also India, although India does have, I would say, a better relationship with the United States, even with the recent rumors surrounding India possibly not wanting to talk to the United States because Trump has threatened serious tariffs on India because of the amount of oil that they buy from Russia, which is really helping Russia continue this war in a big way. And Trump wants to end it. And Trump also made another comment about Putin and Zelensky and said they're going to be meeting, but now it's come out that Putin wants Zelensky to come to Moscow, and now Zelensky doesn't want to go to Moscow, and Trump is saying, let's wait and see what happens, but he's hinting at potentially whether it's sanctions, whether it's some type of, I'm not sure it's going to be sanctions. It might be lighter sanctions, but there's going to be a combination of that along with possibly longer range missiles for Ukraine. The idea would be to pressure Russia into negotiations. That would be the hope, but there has to also be cooperation with Ukraine. I mean, if there is a potential, when you talk about Zelensky having to go to Moscow, I don't think that's a good setup and a good arrangement for Ukraine, and I don't think he's going to agree to that. But maybe Trump can have some type of middleman meeting or middleman country like they previously had in Istanbul. Maybe they can set something like that up again. You can't be very bullish on the chances of peace, with that war. But when it comes to something like this, where you've got Xi Jinping, you've got Putin, you've got Kim Jong un, Iran is another potential adversary for the United States. Now you're starting to set up the Eastern powers, the major countries, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. We'll see where India fits into all that, although I think we still have a good relationship with them overall. It's been a bit bumpy recently, but they have their military parade. And it's just funny how it's this crazy parade. The United States can't have anything like this. It is a different feel with a parade like this. There is a dominant authoritarian feel and just extremely sophisticated and just almost like a hardened group of people in watching this. Everything's clean, everything's done perfect. The marches are done in 100% accuracy in terms of the timing, very technical. And you compare that to what the United States does and some of these other Western countries. But even some Western countries are significantly better than we are in terms of these propaganda exhibitions and these parades. It really is a nationalist thing. And in the United States, especially on the left, they view we should not have nationalism. Anytime a Caucasian country tries to practice nationalism, they just compare us to Nazi Germany. And I think people are starting to wake up and realize how ridiculous that is. That's why you see a lot of these European countries, and it's really a lot of these first world Caucasian countries, they're realizing that this immigration, this replacement, it's just not acceptable and it's not sustainable to keep a decent quality society. The people that are coming in, whether it's their language, the language that they speak, their inability to assimilate, their overall knowledge just in general, they're not proper for a society, and especially a Western society, and they're starting to realize it. That's why you've got the liberal leaders in the UK saying to immigrants, go back. Like, think about how bad that is. Now, look, I'm not in the UK. Maybe this is all a front for them to try and keep power. But when you've got Starmer and liberal leaders telling the immigrants coming over on the boats, go back, turn around, obviously there has been a shift in the politics within some of these Western countries. And a lot of it now is to where the conservative parties are gaining, and they haven't yet eclipsed to win an election, but they're all like right around hovering the top. Look at Germany with the AfD. Look at the UK with the Reform. Look at, well, Italy's already, I guess, perceived more right-wing, but look at France. So you're starting to see it more and more in Europe when it comes to more right-wing parties and really the rejection. You see it in Australia as well. We've also got this. I just wanted to talk about this because this is something that when it comes to these major Supreme Court decisions, like they sneak up on people and then it gets announced and it's this crazy ruling. But they have been talking about potentially considering overturning gay marriage. And we can say, well, this is a major win. The slippery slope theory was true in terms of if you allow for this, what is it going to create? And we know with all the trans stuff and a lot of liberals endorsing young children changing genders, taking aggressive hormones, it did prove to be true, the slippery slope. But this is, I mean, think about this. We had it last 4 years ago, 2022, right before the midterms, Roe v. Wade. You can say, well, that's a major culture win for conservatives, and it becomes a problem in the midterms. And so imagine this happens in 2026. It's Groundhog Day. There's going to be a problem. It's going to be used against conservatives. It's nice to have the Supreme Court, especially a 6-3 Supreme Court in most cases. Some of the justices are they're moderate conservative. But something like this gets overturned, it's going to be very annoying to deal with, at least from a local sense of the 2026 midterms. So we'll see what happens. But you can say, well, long term, that's a good thing if they do overturn that. You've also got this. This is Rand Paul warning against future military strikes on boats coming from Venezuela, saying, quote, what if we did make a mistake and they happen to be people fleeing from a Venezuelan dictator? So Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, they've been doing a lot of counter signaling against the administration. When it comes to something like this, I did not think this was a big deal. There are current U.S. military operations happening within the Venezuelan waters right now, and there was a drug boat that they targeted, and they were able to eliminate it. And sometimes there has to be a show of strength when it comes to what's going on in Venezuela, the amount of drugs coming over or coming in from Venezuela. And look, it is what it is. There's a military operation happening there. It's People know it. They understand it. The leadership, the socialist leadership within Venezuela, the rampant inflation, they should not. They had an election. There's no democracy in Venezuela. The winning party lost because it was overturned by the socialist authoritarian government. That's what's happening there. And you've got all these Monday morning quarterbacks. Oh, what if it's people fleeing? Well, that's the military's job to diagnose that and properly understand whether it's a civilian boat or not. And looks like it was extremely successful. Rubio reported it was very successful. So there are operations, as Trump has been very stern about the cartels. And you can say, well, the United States should not be meddling in it. But I think when you talk about Mexico and Venezuela, but especially Mexico based on its location, it is some of our business because it does affect the United States, not just in terms of drugs coming through Mexico, but the instability that the cartels create within Mexico, which tends to lead to criminal activity and potential criminals coming across the border, and not just criminals, just people in general coming across illegally looking for a better situation. If you get rid of the cartels, Mexico would potentially have a better situation, so the people wouldn't have to migrate to the United States. So there may need to be a show of force against the cartels. It is complicated because you have to be very, very precise on the cartels that you target in the hope that it doesn't create some type of power vacuum, which could only destabilize the cartels even more and create more animosity against the United States. And the Mexican government is also saying they don't want U.S. help when it comes to dealing with the cartels because the cartels are the government is the cartels, or are the cartels, I should say. So, listen, when it comes to the military exercises and whatever Trump is doing in Venezuela, a lot of it, and people say, well, it's because of the amount of oil reserves they have. I mean, we already have deals with Venezuela. It might be Trump trying to oust that socialist leader. They did put a bounty on him. And so the goal may be to free up Venezuela to allow for easier trade and easier access to significant oil reserves within the country. The country's already a mess. They have runaway hyperinflation. And so the question is how does this get dealt with? Trump could be seen as a liberator when it comes to Venezuela and how their recent election was rigged. And so that's something to take into account too when it comes to a situation within Venezuela. But you're going to start hearing more and more about Venezuela, the United States parking ships within the waters, and some operations going on against the drug situation there. And then also we know the Mexican cartels. Trump's been talking about that ever since he became president-elect. Even back during the campaign cycle, possibly trying to eliminate significant cartel problems within Mexico. So there is that. But yeah, overall, I just wanted to discuss this Chinese parade. And there's a reason they did it. They've got all the top Eastern leaders there. And so China and Russia's relationship, it is a convenience-based situation. I would say if we could get a better relationship with Russia, it would go a long way in terms of deterring some type of Eastern bloc that would potentially rival NATO in a possible global war scenario. So we'll have to see if Trump ends up trying to do so. Right now, the relationship with Russia is not the best, but Trump and Putin definitely have a mutual respect that will enable, if we can work something out with Russia and Ukraine, potential cooperation between the United States and Russia after, or maybe even during the negotiations, because you could also get the United States come in and say, hey, we want to work with Russia now, and to achieve this peace deal with Russia and Ukraine, we will offer some type of deal with Russia, whether that's a mineral deal in the Donbass, whether that's something else maybe in the Arctic region. There could potentially be other things that would be offered. When Putin met with Trump, Putin wanted to discuss a lot of things outside of Russia and Ukraine, meaning the relationship the United States could have with Russia. But we have to solve the Russia-Ukraine situation. At least that's what Trump has said. He signaled he wants that solved first before there's any movement on a better relationship with Russia. And Russia seemingly wants more leverage. They want more land. They want more negotiating power at this point. That's why they are uncooperative when it comes to some type of negotiation, some type of meeting between Putin and Zelensky to work out a peace agreement. So that's just the current situation when it comes to that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Also follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.